Yeah, good evening, everyone. We will start in 2 minutes. Just waiting for other students to join. Yes. So, good evening, everyone. I am Rohit from Talent Battle, and I welcome you all for this much awaited upskilling certification course program, that is Generative AI versus Agentic AI Foundations and Applications. So, as you see, the IT industry, considering the market switch, considering the different requirements of the market, always there is a need for sustainability. We should upskill ourselves considering the what exactly market trends are and what are the requirements of the market, and to satisfy this requirement, to collaborate with the requirements of the industry, talent battle is always there. And for the same reason, we are here again with the new upskilling program, that is generative AI versus agentic AI. If you do some analysis of the industry requirements for this year as well as the next upcoming year, you will definitely see that AI models, agentic systems, generative systems, small reasoning models, large language models, all these are the things which will be in the trending part. And the skill set, those candidates who will definitely work on these skill sets will have better sustainability into the market. And if you see the course content that we will be discussing, the placement perspective as well as the upskilling part, all will get covered in this particular certification course, right? So I want you to give some basic instructions initially that this will be a purely hands-on plus theory plus project kind of mode, which will be online, no doubt about it. And we will try to finish all the content that we have designed with respect to modules. 30 to 40 hours of duration we have planned initially for this, where I have divided the entire syllabus into 5 modules. And final objective and outcome of this certification course, which we can say deliverables, will be you will be completing 2 mini projects. You will be completing one capstone project, which is major one. Then you will be portfolio ready for your AI apps, and the skill coverage will be generative AI, agentic AI, prompt engineering, LangChain, AI ethics, and many more. So all these things I will be giving you the idea about the content module wise, how exactly we are going to cover this, what will be our weekly module structure, and we will plan 2 to 3 sessions every week based on the requirements, and you will get all the notifications of these upcoming sessions through the groups or through emails. So stay tuned with that particular channel also, so that you will not miss the sessions. And if due to some any reason circumstances you are not able to attend the session, you will be getting the recordings of this session. You just have to go to our YouTube channel, subscribe over there, and in the description box I will add the link where you can access the recording lectures. Okay, so let's begin with the module content first, and then we will start with the first module today. So today specifically it will be an introductory session which will give you a very clear idea that what exactly we need to work on with, what will be the mode, how exactly we are planning the assessment and everything. The objective of every module, we will try to make sure it is clear and how it is going to benefit you guys in upcoming days, right? So let's begin with the understanding the module, or you can call it as course content, the agenda. So first we will discuss the foundations of Gen AI. Now here our objective is to build strong basics of generative AI. Why it is necessary? Because if you understand the working of generative AI in terms of basic introduction, evaluation of AI, then narrow AI, how the generative AI works, then how the agentic AI systems are there, and there are some key concepts such as large language models, then transformers, diffusion models, everything in detail we will be discussing, don't worry about that. Then how exactly the ecosystem of Gen AI works, the open AI structure. There are a lot of available options in the market such as Google Gemini, Meta, Llama. All these things we will be working on. Then not only the theory, but the hands-on part is also involved in every module. So hands-on with your Gen AI tools, where we will be exploring Chat GPT, Gemini, Copilot, then how the text generation happens, how the code generation happens, how the image generation happens. So step by step, we'll try to understand the working mechanism of all these model tools. Then the applications of Gen AI with respect to as it is working as a code assistant or it is working as a marketing content developer, the idea brainstormer, resume writing. And we will also have a demonstration of how exactly it works, where we will take some general examples from student perspective, which will help them for their regular daily structure working, as well as it will help them for their placement perspective. And every module will have a practical assignment. In this particular module, first one, which is foundation of Gen AI, we will be building a small text to code and text to image generator using APIs. Then coming to the second module, that is prompt engineering and limitations of Gen AI, where objective will be learning how to get the most out of this Gen AI structure, where we need to focus on basics of prompt engineering, because how the structure works with respect to the prompt, and there will be certain chain of thoughts, there will be certain role based prompting. So I will showcase you live that how exactly this prompting works, and based on our requirement we have to understand what should be our objective, the kind of prompt we are providing to these models, and in fewer shots also, as well as in chain of thoughts also, we will try to achieve that particular structure. Then how we can achieve the structured outputs, because everyone is using these models for their different purposes. So to generate certain, technically, if I'm speaking, let's say, for example, I have to generate a Python language code for certain problem statement. If I have to generate an SQL query or JSON structure, so how we can do that in a structured manner, or building a data driven prompts, which will help us for certain processes, right? Also, we need to understand the limitations of Gen AI, because that will help us to work with Agentic. And hallucination part is there. Context window limits are the particular parameters which we need to understand. Memory problem is also there, that we will discuss, and practically we will see how exactly it affects the normal processing of the execution. Then again, as I said, there will be a hands-on lab in every module. So here also we will try to build an SQL query generator using ChatGPT, other API options, where we will generate the data insights from different prompts. And I have added a mini project here, which will be your AI powered resume and cover letter generator, so that which will help us to identify this objective of prompt engineering and how we can apply this to that respective scenario, right? So these are the basic module wise structure that I am explaining over here, which will give you an idea that what are the content that we are going to cover in this particular certification course. In the next module, we will introduce the agentic AI, where we will see how the transition happens from Gen AI to agentic AI. So how exactly this transition happens? What is agentic AI? So autonomous AI agents, then planning, reasoning, acting, comparison with the Gen AI in terms of different case studies, which will give you a very clear idea that how this system works. Apart from that, internally we need to understand how this system works. So we have to work on certain frameworks also, agent frameworks. So I have added LangChain agents, AutoGen, Crew AI, OpenAI function calling. These are all the agent frameworks that we will be covering in module 3. And again, the hands-on lab where we will build, actually we will be building a simple AI agent which will perform some task. It can be searching, it can be summarizing the content, and many other things we can do. And to understand the practical application of it, I have added certain case studies also in this module, where we can develop a business assistants, we can do research assistants, we can do tutors. So this will help you to understand how the system works. In the next module, exactly we will be doing the same, building agentic AI applications, which is the objective is very clear here, that we will deep dive into the multi-agent system. Now, this is very important here. The trend of 2025 was a single agent system. It is what it was, not like there were not multi agents, there were multi agents. But in 2026, in upcoming year, you will see many of these applications will move to multi agent systems and real world projects. So this particular module will be very helpful here, which will help you to understand how exactly the multi agent system works and what is the advanced agent workflows, like different tool integration. Now, the recent news, you might have heard that ChatGPT has started, or they have offered their Play Store. It's a kind of collection of all the things together at one place. It will not be like your mobile Play Store, it will be embedded into the ChatGPT. But yes, it will behave in the same manner. So that shows that these are the things which industry is now working. They are transiting from one particular structure to another structure. So definitely the multi-agent system will going to play a very huge role here. So how this tool integrates in terms of APIs, in terms of databases, then their persistence with respect to memory and the context, and multi-step reasoning is also involved in this process. Now it is currently it is working with the single step reasoning, right? Then again, hands-on lab where we will be working on research assistant, task manager, some industry use cases, and then mini project also. The last module where we will discuss about the capstone project, because the required part, technical part, theory as well as practical application will be covered till module 4. So we can directly consolidate our learning with the full project and ethics and risk in generative AI and agentic AI, because that is also important in terms of data privacy. So bias information, any kind of misinformation, how it affects to the data privacy, what are the AI principles, responsible AI principles that everyone should know. That general idea I will give. Then capstone project where we can go for tutor developer, we can go for business data insight developer, or we can go for personal productivity agent. So a lot of options are there. We'll decide which one will be best suitable for this, and then we will work on that. After that, certain evaluation criterias, and finally we will be completing this certification course in this manner. So this was the content that I hope you got a very brief idea that what exactly we have planned and how we are going to cover this in upcoming sessions, right? Now let's focus on the first module. We'll start understanding what is involved in the first module and how exactly the things will go. Okay, there are certain prerequisite parameters, not technically speaking required cases, but if you are doing it specifically, which will I will be giving you the roadmap. I will be giving you each and every topic list also. Just quick research on those topics, just quick introductory information gathering if you are doing, then definitely it will help you for further modules and understanding the concepts even better. So in our first module, that is Foundations of Generative AI, where we are going to build a strong basic foundation of generative AI, and we'll understand a lot of things such as introduction to Gen AI, then hands-on understanding with Gen AI tools, applications, and some practical assignment. So as I said, in introductory part, we need to understand the evolution of AI, narrow AI, how the generative AI generated, and then agentic AI, right? Where there are a lot of key concepts which is your LLMs, transformers, and diffusion models. So I will be giving you a very clear idea about all these cases. Okay, so let's begin with the prerequisites to understand the generative AI and agentic AI, right? That is our first part, and that is the major agenda of today's session also, which will give you a very clear idea. Let's call it as prerequisites to understand Gen AI and agentic AI. So I have did a lot of research on this so that it will be very easy for everyone to complete maximum things. Definitely the content is very vast, but if we summarize it properly, if we create proper sections, or I would say modules, based on the requirements, then it will be very easy for everyone to work on that and maximum output we can achieve, right? So I have divided these prerequisites into 9 major knowledge blocks. So let's call them as 9 major knowledge blocks. Okay. And in every major knowledge block, I will be explaining you what is required, why we should study this. That is also important. Why? Because there are a lot of concepts that are definitely relatable directly or indirectly to all these concepts. Whatever the content we are going to cover, that part, as well as somehow relatable content apart from the syllabus, because it is having some limitation. 30 to 40 hours of time duration we have. Within that scope, we have to achieve the maximum things. Everything cannot get completed, but maximum required cases we will try to complete. So definitely there will be some sort of relatable and unrelatable content which will come into the picture. So how much depth we have to achieve in every topic or every content, that also we need to understand, and how this model works in the back end. What are the core concepts? If you are primarily familiar with this particular core concepts, then it will be easy for you to understand the upcoming part. Okay, upcoming syllabus content. So let's talk with the first major block, knowledge block, that is mathematics basics. Now you might be thinking we were here for generative AI and we have started with mathematics basics. So definitely it is relatable, no worries. But it should be not in depth. It should be very beginner friendly, right? So don't worry about that. How we are going to achieve this, I will give you a very clear idea. In this, we have subsection first, that is probability and statistics. And I will also explain why it is important and how this relates with our particular content. So when I talk about probability and statistics, why is it needed here? So all your AI and generative AI models make predictions, that we all know, because we are using them. We are using them for making predictions. We are using them for reasoning part, and we are using them for research. We are using them for generating contents and all. So all these models are making predictions based on what? They are making these predictions based on probability distribution. So that's why the probability part comes here, or which becomes very important as a part of prerequisite learning, right? So GPT, we know GPT. GPT is a LLM. LLM means what? Large language models. So these kind of LLMs are choosing your next word based on the probability. So when you're typing something, it is supporting you, it is helping you. The co-pilot approach or the co-pilot applications, you might be thinking, so what is the idea behind that particular generation? So idea behind choosing that next word is the probability, right? Now under this section, probability and statistics, there are some core concepts that you should learn, or that you should have at least basic idea about that things, right? So I will try to create a list here of all this, and later on you can note it down. If possible, I will share this particular file also, so that you will get the structure. So I want you to do some research on these topics, that is mean, median and mode, right? So here we will be understanding the central tendency, because models will try to estimate the central patterns in the data. So these things will help us to understand how this model works, because foundation we need to learn, right? And later on we need to learn the application. So understanding the mean, median and mode, how it works, some sort of math is involved here, no doubt, but the central tendency structure will help us to understand the estimated structure of central patterns in the data, right? After that we have variance and we have standard deviation. So if you are working with any particular data set, then how much variation exists in your data set needs to be calculated. And at that point, this particular concept will help you. There are certain probabilistic distributions of your data. Somehow it is uniform distribution in certain cases. It is normal distribution, or you can call it as Gaussian distribution. It can be Bernoulli's distribution. It can be binomial distribution. So your generative AI is using this probabilistic distribution to choose the output. So definitely that question is there, that how this generative AI is choosing the output. So now we got a very clear answer, that this generative AI models are choosing their output based on these probabilistic distributions, which is your uniform distribution in certain cases. It can be Gaussian, it can be Bernoulli, it can be binomial. Definitely it is dependent on the type of data, the kind of problem statement you are dealing with. A lot of parameters are there, but the base concept, fundamental part is, it is based on the probabilistic distribution. Then conditional probability and Bayes theorem. I hope everyone is very clear with this word, that is Bayes theorem. So how these models are updating their beliefs, which is based on the new information. Now we know that they are updating their information on a regular basis, and huge amount of data they are using to generate the new data. So these models are updating their beliefs based on this new information, and where they are using conditional probability, and Bayes theorem is the concept, right? Let's take a simple example to understand this. Okay, so I will add this particular names what I have used, that is conditional probability, then Bayes theorem, and probabilistic distribution. This much part we have discussed. Now next is understand these things with simple example. So let's take an example to understand here. Let's say for example, we are typing on WhatsApp application. Okay, we are thinking of predictive kind of typing on WhatsApp application. So let's say if you type happy, okay, if you type happy, now later on the system will predict what it can predict. Happy New Year, it can predict happy morning, or it can predict happy birthday. You can check this live. You can check this live on your WhatsApp application. If it is suggesting you certain words, then if you type happy, you got suggestions over there in the chat, right? You can get suggestions over that keyboard panel, that what kind of words it is suggesting you. So if you observe, when it is predicting, I am taking three cases here, that if you type happy, you will get happy birthday. If you type happy, you might get New Year, or you might get morning. So what is the probability, or what is the chance of getting birthday as a word which is predicted or generated by that structure is almost 70%, right? There is a 70% chance that you will get this. And there is a 20% chance of New Year, and there is a 10% chance of morning. This is what we called a pure probability. This is what we called a pure probability, right? So that is the reason probability and statistics are important, and that comes under the first subsection of our mathematics basics. Okay. Now moving to the, I hope this example gives you idea that why this particular conceptual part is important here. And I want you to just do some research, at least basic introductory information about these topics should be there. Whatever is required from our syllabus perspective, definitely I will going to cover those things in detail. Okay, so don't worry about that part, but at least everyone should have a detail knowledge or detail a list, I would say, in terms of a certain topic list, which is important. Right, now coming to the second part under the same knowledge block, that is linear algebra. Why again it is important, why it is needed here? The main heart of all these models are transformers. And if you're aware about the full form of GPT, you can just drop it into the chat box. I just want to check how much idea you have about that particular case. Okay, so why it is needed linear algebra here? Because transformers, the embeddings of the systems, the neural networks, all are working on one single base structure, and that base structure is matrix multiplication. Everything is based on that particular concept, that is matrix multiplication. Internally they are working like this. So we need to understand how it works. So the concepts that you should know here in this particular case is vectors. First thing, right? Let's say, for example, if I have to encode a sentence as a numerical vector, that is the example, how the sentence that you are providing to them is getting encoded as a numerical vector, right? Then you should be aware about how the multiplication happens. So I would say matrices and matrix multiplication should be on your list. And then dot product is another technical concept here, how it works, mathematical part. Because let's say, suppose every layer in your LLM is going to multiply your input vectors and weight matrices. So this is somehow structured as a neural one, right? Neural network, you might have seen the image of how exactly the neural networks are. So there you can see the multiplication happens with the input data. Then there is a weight factor, there is a bias factor. So all this is basically working on the concept of matrix multiplication. Then there is a dot product, the attention mechanism, a very important word I am giving to you, that is attention mechanism. And this attention mechanism is the core of transformers. If you understand the working of transformers, you will understand the heart of these models, which is very important. Let's take a simple example here. Suppose we have a dog image and it is getting represented. So what do you think, how it is getting represented? So this image is actually being stored as a millions of numbers of pixels, because your model is going to process these numbers using which type of operation? Matrix operation, to understand that image. So when you're uploading something, it is getting stored, it is getting converted, and the processing of your model is dependent on this matrix operation, or you can say it is using the matrix operations to understand that particular image, right? So this is how the second half, a linear algebra of the first knowledge block, is important. And the third one, which is last under this particular section, that is calculus. Not in detail, only basics of calculus is required. So as I said, depth you can decide based on the requirements, right? Now, why calculus is needed in this entire process? Now, if you understand how these models are learning, where we know basic idea about artificial intelligence, we know machine learning, we know deep learning, right? Where neural networks are involved. So we are giving data sets to them. We are asking the model to learn from the data set and try to predict something. So what is the mathematical concept behind that structure is your gradient descent, right? So that concept is gradient descent. Okay. So why this gradient descent is used? Actually, it is used to reduce the error part. And it uses a mathematical term that is called as derivatives, which is the main processing part behind this reduction of the error. So to understand how the model learns, the gradient descent is being used to reduce the error using the derivatives. Now, what are the topics that you should work, or you should at least do some research under the calculus section? So that is your functions, right? Then you have derivatives, how it is being calculated, okay? And then you should work on partial derivatives. And the last, as I said, gradient descent. These are some things that everyone should have a very clear idea. At least basic about all these things should be clear, okay? Now this completes your first knowledge block. First knowledge block. Okay. Now I have received some responses in the chat box. Let me just check that. Generative pre-trained transformer. Great, Darshit. Very good. Yeah. Yes, Rakesh. As I have explained the probability and statistics, these are the things that you should work. Very beginner friendly knowledge will be sufficient. That mean, median, mode, what are these concepts, how it is calculated. You can just take a simple data set and you can work on this. At least a primary research will be sufficient. We'll do our needful part. Okay. And any at particular time, if you think that this particular thing should be covered, just let me know. I will add that into my discussion. No worry about it. Okay. Now, next section, that is your second building block, mathematical knowledge block, is your Python programming, which is something I would say a compulsory part. Compulsory. If not, we should learn this. We'll cover the important aspect. Now, why Python? A lot of options are there. So specifically all libraries of Python. For example, we have NumPy, then Pandas, PyTorch, TensorFlow, all are Python based. And all these large language models, as well as the frameworks, agent frameworks. Let's say, for example, we have LangChain, we have Crew AI, OpenAI Assistants, DSPY. All these are using Python in their working class, right? So the core concepts of Python should be very clear, I would say. What are those concepts? So if you are obviously the engineering students, if they are attending this course, they are having a very clear idea. Even they are very much familiar with all these concepts of Python that I am going to write it down. But if anyone who is not having idea about this, they can go to Talent Battle part. They will get a lot of material over there. From there also you can access the data, or you can do the research on your own as well, right? So there are some core concepts of Python which are required. Basic, very basic I am writing, that is how variable works, then loops, then conditional statements. Everything should be very clear. Then how the function works in Python, then basics of object oriented programming. This thing should be very clear. Then file handling, right? Then how to import the libraries, basic idea about the library functions. Then we have dictionaries, we have tuples, data type collection, we have lists, right? And now you might be thinking, sir, is this the course of Python programming? So no. We are focusing on the objective of GenAI only. So the question comes, why does this matter for GenAI? What I am writing here, these basic building blocks, why does this matter for GenAI? So you need to understand certain terms of GenAI. At that time, these things will help you. Let's say, for example, tokenization. Now, tokenization is a technical term which is being taken care, or which is happening in your GenAI programming part or processing part. Now, what is tokenization? How it works? How it works in the back end? So tokenization actually uses the dictionaries and list. So if you are very clear with the dictionaries, if you are very clear with the list, you will better understand the tokenization. Our main objective is to understand tokenization. And for that, this is required. Then embedding models output of embedding models is in the format of arrays or list. The workflows of agentic AI is using Python functions as a tool. So if you're clear with these fundamentals, it will be easy for you to understand the embedding working, tokenization part, workflows of these models, workflows of all these frameworks of agents. So these things are correlated. So that's why in the very first introductory session, I am giving you the idea about the 9 major structures, what I have done the research, background research on that. And we have defined these 9 model structures, which will give you a complete idea, and which will fulfill our requirement also. Okay. So this was the second block. Now moving towards the third one, which is again a very important, that is data fundamentals, and very basic things that most of the students might be aware about it also. So no worries. that you should have a very clear idea about it. So first thing, anyone can give me the definition of this. What is data? A technical definition of data. You can put your answer in the chat box. I can check that part, right? So first important thing is data. And any example also you can give. We all know that textual data is there, images are there, audio is there, numbers, then logs, sensor readings. Now all this comes under the data. So technically, if we see, the definition of data can be any measurable information is your data. Data means what? It is any measurable information. Now the models like GPT, those are generative AI models. So these, and another is your Claude. These are trained on massive data sets. We all know that. Now, when these models are getting trained on these massive data sets, the question comes that what type of data they are using. So is it a structured data? Is it an unstructured data? Or is it a semi-structured data? Right? Because data sets are of different categories. We have raw data also. We have structured, unstructured options also. So what kind of massive data sets they are using for training purpose, and what should be the structure? What kind of structure they are doing, right? So second part comes, that is types of data. So we have structured option. Structured means what? Again, here we have tables, the SQL queries we can perform, execute or fire on this particular structure, right? Then we have unstructured data. Now, unstructured data means your text, images, audios. So all the generative AI models are using this unstructured data. They're using this, all the generative AI models. And we have one more category that we normally call as semi-structured. So semi-structured means your JSON files, your HTML structure, your logs, your sensor readings. Now, so all that comes under semi-structured, unstructured, structured. These three are the basic types of data. If you see the real examples here, the chat GPT input. Suppose I am inputting something to my chat GPT model. So that is what? That is unstructured text. Suppose I write down a prompt that provide me a Python code of, let's say, factorial program or factorial example. So that becomes the unstructured test, right? Now the same structure, if I prepare in Google Sheets, so that will become my structured data. So these Gen AI models are learning mainly from unstructured data, especially in the format of text. Okay, it is not getting applicable to everything, 100% applicable to all aspects. No, especially when it comes to text, your Gen AI is learning mainly from unstructured data, right? Then how this data is getting processed. So pre-processing concept should be there. You should be have very clear idea about the pre-processing of the data. We all know that the data that we are using, or that the data we are gathering from different sources, will not be the clean one, will not be the pure one. So definitely will require ETL process, will require cleaning, will require normalization, then feature extraction from it, splitting your data for training purpose, remaining some sort of data for testing purpose. Normally we go for 70-30 or 80-20 kind of structure. 70% of data we use for training, 30% we use for testing. In some cases we use 80-20. That depends upon the problem requirement. So that is, there is no fixed rule kind of thing. Okay, so data pre-processing concepts. Data pre-processing concepts is your next list part, where, as I said, it will be cleaning of the data. Like noise will be there in the data. Noise means what? Unnecessary, avoidable cases. So removing that noise, that is equivalent to cleaning, which involves your ETL process, extraction, transformation, and then loading, normalization, standardization, feature extraction, and splitting. Why it is important? Suppose your data which is provided as an input to your model, let's say it is a bad data. So your AI will become bad AI. Simple. You're giving input in that format or in that meaning, obviously the output will be same. So bad data is equivalent to bad AI, and garbage input is equivalent to garbage output. Simple formula is there, or simple structure is there. So what you are providing to your model for learning purpose, training purpose, because these models are learning from this unstructured data. So if you are providing them a quality input, obviously the output will be a quality output. And now we are using this model, we can have the comparison. We can compare the result of one model with respect to another model. So you will see the difference, what kind of information they are extracting or what kind of information they are generating. So all the output is dependent on that particular case. Now in ChatGPT also, when we are using it for our personal use, and everyone is using that demo account, some might have subscriptions also, better models also. So when you are generating something through that GPT model, if you have observed this, it always give you some kind of multiple responses, and it asks you which response do you prefer. I hope everyone has gone through this process. So when you select one particular response, might be structural differences can be there, contextual differences can be there, content wise differences can be there. No, the data which is represented in a different structure, the quality of the content, lot of parameters are involved. So when you select one as your preferred response, then automatically that model works in that same context in next time, in future workings, right? So that is how it works. So bad data equivalents to bad AI, garbage input equivalents to garbage output, right? Then fourth model block here is, which is slowly going towards machine learning. So machine learning fundamentals should be there on your list. Before Gen AI, you need to understand the basics of machine learning. So what exactly the machine learning model is? What is machine learning model? So in simple terms, if I would like to define it, it is a mathematical system that learns the patterns from the data. And we have had enough discussion on data and their types and all, so you can relate it. A mathematical system that learns patterns from the data. Now there will be three categories of this ML, right? There are three categories. You might be aware about this. I'm quickly covering this. Supervised learning, okay? Then we have unsupervised learning. At any point of time, if you have any doubts, just let me know in the chat box, okay? And the third one is reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning. So supervised learning means what? It will have tables. So you can do classification. Let's say take an example, spam email, not spam email. That is a basic example to understand how it works as a classifier. Then second one will be regression, where we can predict something. You can predict the house prices, you can predict the values, anything you can do based on the data set that you have. In unsupervised learning, where labels are not provided, so we can do customer segmentation. For example, clustering we can do. And in reinforcement learning, you can do your agent will learn from trial and error kind of structure. So we are providing them some sort of offers, some sort of rewards, and based on that, we are identifying the positive and negatives of it. So your agent is learning by trial and error method, So this method, reinforcement learning, is used by your LLMs, RLHF, right? We will explain that separately. So this learning will work for the LLM models. Then basic ML algorithms, that you should have idea about it, how it works. The ML algorithm is another sub concepts, you can say. The algorithms such as linear regression, then logistic regression, then decision trees. Okay, then we have KNN, SVM, support vector machine, and K-means clustering. There are a lot of other cases as well, but this is something at least basic. You should have basic understanding of this algorithm, how it works. Why? Again, the same question comes. Why we should learn this in GenAI course? Because the intuition building for every model, now understanding the deep learning, this will build your intuition, how exactly the data works, how these algorithms are working, what is the approach behind the output generation, right? Then we have the fifth model block, that is your deep learning basics. Deep learning basics. Now under this deep learning, your generative AI models are nothing but the deep neural networks. So we should have a very clear idea about neural networks. So what is neurons, what is layers, weights, bias information, activation function, loss function. So analogy behind this particular structure or learning this basics is what? Your neural network is equivalent to the brain, which is going to inspire your network, right? And every neuron which is part of that network is nothing but a small calculator. So I'm trying to keep the things very simple to understand it at very basic level. And together, everything can be learned by this model to understand the complex pattern. So when you multiply all these things, when you merge all these things, the neural networks, the brain, the neurons, the layers, the weights, the bias, the activation function, these are all there to learn the complex patterns. Then we have CNNs, convolutionary neural networks. So image generation, we know that we are giving a prompt to our model that generate this image for particular scenario, particular kind of context. So how it is happening in the backend? So convolutionary neural networks are there because to understand image generation, we should have an idea about CNN. To understand the visionary models, right? Vision models, for example, Midjourney, for example, Delay. These vision models are using CNN for image generation. Then we have RNNs, right? Recurrent neural networks. Before transformers, the sequential text execution was handled by RNNs. So if you understand RNN, you will understand why transformers are better. As I said, transformers are the heart of your models, but how they are better? Before that, who was taking care of these things? So RNN was there. So to understand this transformer part, you should have an idea about RNN cases, right? And as I said, the heart of generative AI, transformer is a very key concept. So self attention mechanism, multi-head attention mechanism, positional encoding, decoding blocks, all these things will come under the transformers. We will be discussing all these things in detail. I'm just giving you primary idea why these transformations matters a lot, and all your modern gen AI models are using transformers. So GPT, which is used for generative pre-trained transformers text, then Llama, Gemini, Claude, DALL-E, which is a multimodal system, then Stable Diffusion, all these are the generative AI models are using transformers, right? Now tokenization, as I said, which is a very important thing, and some Python concepts, basic concepts are required here to understand. So to understand the tokenization, I am just giving you a very simple example here. Let's say, for example, you are dealing with a word, because transformers are not going to read your full sentences. What is tokenization? To understand this, transformers are not going to read your full sentences. They just read the tokens. They will break the words into smaller chunks. Let's say, for example, learning is your word. So what they are going to do, they are going to break this thing into learn plus ing. This is very foundational knowledge, right? So learn plus ing, this is what we call tokenization. So transformers are working on this strategy, this particular thing. Now to understand this, we need to work on large language cases, right? So NLP, yes, that was the next point, that NLP comes into the picture here. That will be our seventh building block. So sixth, I think I have mixed here. The sixth one was transformers. Yes. So let's complete the list. Sixth one is your transformers, and seventh one is your NLP, natural language processing. Now entire Gen AI is built on NLP. So the TF-IDF concept, bag of words, how the embedding happens of different words, how the embedding happens with respect to sentences, and similarity. Now here again, cosine similarity is a concept that comes into the picture. So these are all the topics that you should have idea about NLP concepts, as well as these subtopics of NLP. So learning happens based on this. So word to vectors, right? So if I go with this, let's take a real example. Your word to vector learns like this. For example, we have a word king, then man plus woman. So what will be the output? King, man, and then woman. So your model is learning based on this structure, and the output will be queen. So this is what we call real example based on NLP. It directly leads to how LLM is embedding the things. King minus man plus women. So that leads to queen. This concept directly leads to embeddings, LLM embeddings, right? So your bag of words is important here. Word embeddings are important. So word to vector is an example of how word embedding happens. Application example. There is another one that is globe or V, you can say globe V. So these are the application cases which are best on the word embeddings cases. Somehow new information here. Then basics of reinforcement learning. That is your eighth particular block, that is basics of reinforcement learning. Why we required this reinforcement learning here? Because your large language modules, which are chat gpt, or you can say reinforcement learning with human feedback. So as I said, I will explain that rlhf separately. So I am giving you here the idea about it, basic idea. This is reinforcement learning with human feedback, right? So agent, what is agent? What is the environment? What do you mean by rewards to the agent? What is the policy of that trial and error mechanism? How we can explore and how we can exploit a particular situation? These are the concepts which comes under reinforcement learning, and all your llms are using this mechanism of reinforcement learning with human feedback, that is rlhf. Let's take an example to understand this. Now if we are teaching a particular dog certain tricks using rewards, so if you relate it directly with rl, so definitely it works, because that is what reinforcement learning is. We are asking dog to perform a particular task, and against to that, or after completion of that task, we are giving a reward to him. And if the dog is not performing well, we are giving him instructions. So trial and error, because 100% it is not going to happen that in very first attempt it will work. Okay, so we are teaching a dog and giving some rewards. So it is same like human feedback is also involved and reinforced learning is also involved, right? And the last block, that is block number 9, is understanding the apis, understanding different tools and the automation system behind it, right? So this will be our last building block here, right? So this is essential for agentic ai. So what exactly api means? Now some sort of technical aspects like get and post request, your json data format, external tools, python automation, OpenAI functioning, and how exactly the agent works. So if you ask a particular agent that book me a flight, create a calendar event, and send a reminder. If this kind of input I'm giving to my agent, which is already built, which is working for me. So I'm giving him a query, or I'm asking him to book me a flight, create a calendar event, and send a reminder to me. So how exactly this entire instruction is being handled by that agent, how your llms are going to understand the thing. So understanding the task, here the concept of nlp comes, natural language processing, because whatever the instruction I have given is nothing but the natural language part. So first step involved here is to understand the task. Second, plans the steps, means agent is going to perform a reasoning here, that first I have to book a flight, then I have to create a calendar event, and then sending a reminder. So to perform a respective task, he is going to call the apis based on the respective backend work we have done on the api. Every particular task has a separate api. So booking api, calendar event creation is another api, let's say sending a reminder is another api. So that agent will call those apis and they will perform. After performing, the agent will verify the output, is it successfully done? There might be some technical issues also in the processing, so verification of the output is also part of that llm, and then executes a final action. So what it requires? It requires the knowledge of API plus automation concept. So that's why, to understand how API works, how exactly it is being developed, how the agent works, different tools are there behind that, and then the automation part of it, right? So these are the 9 basic structures. I would call them as prerequisite knowledge blocks, 9 major knowledge blocks. Mathematics basics, beginner friendly, which involves your probability statistics, linear algebra, and calculus, 3 sections. Then Python programming, data fundamentals, ML fundamentals, have some algorithms also, deep learning basics, transformers, NLP, basics of reinforcement learning, and APIs, tools, and automation, right? So these are the things which comes under the basic prerequisite learning. And if you have a very basic idea also, that is more than sufficient. As and when it is required, as I said earlier also, during our discussion of particular topic, I will be covering this aspect in detail. Okay, so I would just like to summarize all this discussion, what we have did from last 1 hour. and then we will conclude for the today's session. Okay. So in mathematics, the probability, linear algebra, and calculus, this is required for Gen AI. Why? That why I am going to clear now. These models are going to learn from patterns using math. So that's why math block is very important. Second one was Python. So all your AI coding is done in Python. So that's why Python is there. Next was data. So raw data is directly related to the training data. So we need to understand the types, we need to understand the pre-processing concepts and cleaning of the data. Then ML, machine learning basics was there, which gives you foundation to understand the deep learning. And deep learning is directly equivalent to generative AI. They are using deep learning, simple. Then transformers. So that is the core architecture of your large language models. Then we have NLP, natural language processing, which is mostly text-based. All the generative AIs are right now mostly text-based. So they are using the concepts of embeddings, TF-IDF, and similarity. So NLP comes into that picture. And reinforcement learning, basics of reinforcement learning, where reinforcement learning based on human feedback. So LLMs are using this concept of RLHF. And last one was APIs and tools and automation. So agentic AI is going to perform these multi-step actions, right? So this is how we can summarize our today's discussion. It was a introductory session of 1 hour, which gives you idea. The objective was very simple, to gives you idea about the content that we are going to cover in next 30 to 40 hours, how the models are designed, what we will get, the objective of every model, and the basic prerequisite part. Now from the next session, whenever you will get the message, you definitely attend the session. We will start with actual introduction to Gen AI, and each and everything which is involved in the syllabus in detail we'll discuss. Okay, step by step. So that's it. I would like to thank everyone for attending the today's session. If you have any queries, any doubts related to the content as well as related to the discussion that we did, you can drop a message into the chat box during the session also. Those who are not able to attend the things, they can access the recordings. Just go to the YouTube channel, subscribe for it, go to the description and check the link. Okay, I will add the link. Within 2 to 3 days, you will get the recording of the session also. Content and everything, I will try to summarize these parameters, what we will use in the session, and I will try to provide you through the description part only. Okay. And the information about the upcoming sessions, when the session will be scheduled, we'll try to make sure that weekly we will try to conduct 2 or 3 sessions so that maximum coverage we can do. And all the necessary information regarding that session will be given to you through your WhatsApp channels or email channels. So stay tuned for that. Happy learning and thank you once again. Good night to everyone.